This week we're studying Parashat Lecha, third Torah portion in our Torah. Action-packed. The book of Genesis is, I think, in my opinion, my favorite of the five books. I think every year we when we get back to the beginning of the book, I always say that. But someone once told me, but Rabbi, when you get to the beginning of the book of Exodus, you say the same thing. So I don't know. Maybe it's all. But there's something special to be said about the book of Genesis and the story of creation, the story of our patriarchs, the 12 tribes, and the many lessons that are to be learned from them. So let's go into this. Pincus is going to share with us a very, very important concept with regards to the verse of Lech, Lecha. Lech, Lecha literally means go for yourself. And this was when Abraham was 75 years old. He was commanded by God to leave his homeland. Let's put this up on the screen for everyone. Here we go. Chapter 12, verse 1. Vayomer Hashem el Avram. Lech lecha me'artzecha. Leave your homeland. Molatcha, the place of your birth. Bet avicha, your father's house, to the place I will show you. So, just important to note, and Pincus speaks about this, this was one of the 10 tests of faith that Abraham had. There are different commentaries numbering the 10 tests differently. We have Maimonides that says it one way, Rashi and Rabbi Yonah say it another way, Bartanura. There's different ways to count what they were, but everyone agrees that Lech Lecha was one of the 10 tests of faith that Abraham had to pass, or was being tested by God. Asks Rabbi Pincus, he says, what's so difficult about the test of Lech Lecha? Let's go. Let's be critical over here. What's so difficult? How many people do you know, or have we ever heard of, that were forced to leave their hometown and to travel and to be wanderers from place to place to place to place? And this is one of the 10 mighty tests of faith that God is giving Abraham. So Pincus says an amazing concept. He says, Avraham's test was to see if he would agree to God and leave. So I don't know if I said that right. Avraham's test wasn't to see. Avraham's test was not to see if he would agree to God and just leave. Rather, his test was to see if Avraham was able to separate and disassociate himself from his upbringing and his warped philosophies of idolatry. The test was to see if Avraham identifies with his father's house or with Hashem alone. If he is 100% committed to God, then Avraham will literally do anything for him. And this departure is not a physical departure targeted towards a specific location. As we know, we spoke about, there was no location. There was no destination. Rather, this was a spiritual departure and a test of, is Avraham committed and ready to forge a covenant and a relationship with God? Avraham's commitment to pack up and leave and follow Hashem in any direction that he said was more than just a road trip or a story of a wandering man, maybe the first wandering Jew. No, this was indeed a true test of faith. That's why it falls under one of the 10 tests of faith. Because this was going to be part of Avraham building up his case and proof that he is a faithful servant of the Lord and he is only associated to Hashem and not to his father's house at all. So according to this, Rabbi Pincus says, the first 3 Torah portions develop as follows. The first Torah portion, Bereshit, is the creation of the world, and that's all godly topics, divine topics. The second Torah portion, Parashat Noach, is mankind in general. Nothing too positive over there. The third concept, as the way he says it, is the beginning of Judaism, the beginning of monotheism, because it is the search for God. And it started with Avraham. Avraham was the first to search for God. See, Noah was approached by God to build the ark. Adam was created by God, and God came to him. Avraham was the first to go out looking for him. And he spent decades and decades and decades, at least half a century, looking for God. And he finally came to him at the age of 70. The Torah is teaching us, Rabbi Pincus tells us, that the very first step to searching for God and connecting to Him is by Lech, Lecha, to separate ourselves from the world around us. The world around us that's filled with anti-Torah philosophies. That's the first way, and that's the only way to connect to Hashem. It's by Lech Lecha, leave for yourself. You got to do it yourself. If you don't do it yourself, it's never going to happen. I was speaking earlier this afternoon with my mother, and we were speaking. It's my bar mitzvah portion, and we have an interesting custom, or had an interesting custom in my family. It's a little personal. It's a little sad, but I'll share it. My grandfather back in Morocco, may he live and be well. He still lives in Montreal. He had a younger brother who was just 1 year younger than him, and my grandfather was 13, and his younger brother was 12. And he got very, very sick. I was back home this summer in Montreal, and my grandfather told me the story again. I've heard it many times from him, but it was emotional. It's still emotional. He's almost 90 years old, and it's still emotional for him. And his younger brother caught some type of virus. I always thought it was a pneumonia, but it wasn't pneumonia. It was some other type of virus. And then he also developed pneumonia, and he practically was seen by doctors, and the doctors didn't know what to do. Kind of like they don't know what to do nowadays with COVID, but let's not speak about that. And they didn't know what to do, and they told his parents to not feed him and not give him anything to drink. He's got to burn out the virus. And they thought the way to do it was by starving the kid to death. And unfortunately, Hashem Yirachem, the child died. His younger brother died. And he saw it. And he was scarred from that so hard. And he was 12 and a half years old. His younger brother's name was Moshe. And when my grandfather eventually moved to Canada, and he married my grandmother, and they had their first son, my father, and they named him Moshe Chaim. Moshe is alive, because my grandfather felt that through his first son, his younger brother continued to live. Why am I telling you this? Because my grandfather instituted this family tradition that the boys in our family should celebrate and observe and become bar mitzvah before their 13th birthday, in their 12th year, at like 12 and a half-ish. So my father's birthday is around Rosh Hashanah, and he did Parashat Shlach, which is a couple months before. Myself, my birthday is Chanukah time. And we did look how before we're like 2 months ahead of time. Parashat Lech Lecha. And the reason this tradition started is because, God forbid, Hashem should spare, but if the child has to go before, at least he had the mitzvah of putting on tefillin and being called up to the Torah And that's where this tradition came. So I find it, I mean, if you'd ask my parents, well, why did they choose this week's Torah portion? Well, honestly, this is the perfect Torah portion to choose for bar mitzvah boy. Why? Because it's right after the high holidays. Because anyone who's born anywhere like a month before, it's the craze of the high holidays. Before the high holidays, the middle of the high holidays, Sukkot, it's just too Parashat Bereshit, it's too difficult, whatever. Like Parashat Noach, maybe it's not the nicest timeline. Lech Lecha is a perfect time to make a bar mitzvah celebration. Why not? It's the story of Abraham searching for God. But as my mother and I shared, it was obviously, and we all believe, it was divine providence. Hashem chose that this week should be the Torah portion that I should read from the Torah for the first time and celebrate. Because when I was 17 years old, when I graduated high school, I also left my hometown, my birthplace, my parents' home, and I went to Israel. I went to study in yeshiva in Israel. It's a brand new exposure to me, something that I didn't grow up with. And we all thought, okay, it would be 1 year. And very quickly, 1 year turned into 7 years. Literally, like the Eved Ivri, I was a slave to God for 7 years over there. I could be a slave to God my entire life. But literally 1 year turned into 7 years in the Holy Land of Israel studying Torah. And that is only because, and I can, and anyone can attest, and I can guarantee you, I would not be the same person I am today, as flawed as I am, as imperfect as I am, but I would be so different today if I would have never left my hometown and went to study in the holy yeshivas in Israel and basking in the wisdom, in the greatness, in the divinity of the Torah and the Holy Land. And this concept of literally detaching yourself from the world around you is a proven recipe, not just in ancient times, but in current times as well. And this is exactly what Rabbi Pincus is telling us. Rabbi Pincus is telling us, you want your first step to searching for Hashem and connecting Him? Separate yourself from the surrounding world. You know, from time to time, everyone watches the news. You may like what I'm going to say now. You may not like what I'm going to say now. But by the way, that's why you come back and listen, because it's interesting either way. I don't watch too much news. I don't have too much time for the news. Now, do I get important news? Yes, I have one ambassador that's on with us tonight. She knows who she is. That anytime that something very important comes up, I make sure I know. Or I hear from the kids at school or from other family members or friends, anything very important. To be honest with you, I did watch a little more news when President Trump was president, just because it was more amusing and more interesting, whether you like him or not. But there is something to be said. Now, again, I'm not saying that we need to completely disconnect. And to completely connect, there's a danger as well. And the problem with completely connecting and completely being exposed to the media, and the media is not just the news. Media is Hollywood. The media is shows, it's movies, it's TV, it's cartoons. What's in essence happening, whether we understand it or acknowledge it or even know about it or not, is that we are being brainwashed. We are being taught to look at the world and think of different things through the brains of puppeteers. People which are not directly connected to God. This happens in any type of things that we read, that we watch, that we participate in. Now, again, we're not saying that everything is bad and everything is wrong. No, some things are different. Some things do fall into line. There are definite morals and ethics that may fall in line. But in general, if we want to really connect to God, what our sages are telling us is we need to separate ourselves from the world that we live in, because the philosophies of the world that we live in, not just today, it's been like this forever, are not that of our Torah and God. And the only way to distinct them and to know the difference between them is to learn Torah and to learn how our sages explain the Torah and explain how relationships are supposed to be lived or had or not. There are many things that are in the Torah which are completely against or different to the world that we live in. And we would, because of the world that we live in our upbringing, may side with many of these things more with the secular society of the Western society, let's call it, opposed to the Torah values. I could give an example. You're not going to like it. You're really not going to like it. But I'll say it. The Torah has specific cases when people do certain things in certain ways that they are liable for death punishment. Now, Western society doesn't know of this. You have to do something extremely, extremely treasonous in the United States of America to be killed. And they don't even do the electric chair anymore. It's like a shot, and then they don't even feel it, and bye-bye, Charlie. According to the Torah, there are certain transgressions that a Jew commits after being warned by 2 kosher witnesses and then witnessed to have committing that transgression, that they would also be executed. Now, I'm being honest with you. Even to me, that seems very extreme and a little too much. But why do I feel like that? It's because of the society and the world that we've grown up with. And whether you like it or not, that's a problem. Because that's not the way God intended on creating this world for us to live in. The way he intended it was the exact way that it says in the Torah. So in order for us to genuinely connect to God, we kind of need to shock ourselves. We need like a shock treatment. Has your pool ever turned green on you? Well, I'm sure it has. But if it hasn't, when your pool turns green, it means there's an imbalance of chemicals. And what needs to be done is some type of chemical, very strong one, needs to get in there and shock the pool. And you can't go into the pool for, whether it's 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. It takes time for the pool to, I don't know if the words recalibrate or get back to normalcy. We too, when we need to set out on our path to searching for God, need to shock ourselves. We need to Lech, Lecha. We need to literally pick up and go. Now, sometimes you could pick up and go to Israel. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can change your profession. Sometimes you can't. I'm not saying you have to. Every person has to do something different. That's the beauty of God and the relationship that we have with God, that each and every one of his children has their own specific path to connecting to him. But we have to know that if you want a real connection, if you really want to discover God, you have to have a shock treatment. Because until you disassociate yourself, until you separate yourself from the world that you live in, now, of course, physical aspects, but it's way more than just physical aspects. It's philosophical, it's spiritual, emotional aspects. Until you remove yourself from that, you're never going to truly discover God the way he intended you to discover him. It's a touchy topic. It's not a nice topic. You're not going to like me for this one. Don't. It's okay. It's not me. It's not me. This is not just Rabbi Pincus that says this. All the rabbis, any rabbi, will all agree to this. That's what Lech Lecha is. That's what Avraham Avinu did. I mean, the question can be asked, who grew up in a sicker world? Abraham or us? In some ways, Abraham grew up in a sicker world. He grew up in a world that only knew idolatry. They knew nothing else. They had an excuse for everything and every creation in this world that was created by a different type of idol. And you look at our world. It's not sick. There isn't chaos. There's a lot. There's a lot of beauty, of course. There's many positive things we can look at, but it's still a crazy world. Doesn't matter. Abraham did it. We have to do it. He lech lecha. We have to lech lecha. He left for himself. He disassociated, detached from his world that he lived in. That's the way we will discover God properly. You can obviously discover God on a very shallow level. If you really want to connect, you really want to find him, it's going to hurt. It's a shock treatment, like the pool. Let's move on now to the next concept. This is the first concept from Rabbi Pincus. Next concept. 10 years after Abraham was promised by God that if he listens to him, he leaves his hometown, he'll be blessed with children, wealth, and fame. Famous. He's 10 years into this journey, and still it has not come true. There's been a famine, and another famine, and he has no children. Abraham's now 85, and Sarah's 75, and they're like, wow, is this really going to happen, or what? So Sarah says, got an idea for you. Come and take Hagar, my maidservant. Have a child with her. Take a look at your screen. Chapter 16, verse 1 in Genesis. V'Sarai yeshet Avram, Sarai tells, Alo yadala, she has no children yet. Vela shivcha misritu shma Hagar, and she has an Egyptian maidservant. Her name was Hagar, actually the daughter of Paro. Next verse. Vatomer Sarai el Abraham. Sarai tells Abraham, Hinenat Sarani Hashem yiledet. Listen, let's face the facts. Let's face the music. I'm not going to give birth. Hashem's restraining me from having children. Bona el shifchati ulai baneh mimena. Come now to my maidservant. Perhaps you'll be able to build through her. Vaishma Avram lekol Sarai. And Avram, like a good husband, listened to the voice of his wife, Sarah. So she suggests for them to have a child. That's what happens. Rashi says, when Sarah says, Ulai ibane mimena, maybe you can build our house through her. You know what Rashi says? Rashi says that Sarah believed that after she allows her rival to enter her house, her maidservant, to live with Avraham, she felt that Hashem will reward her, that she'll have her own child. It's a concept that we're not. I mean, it's late. It's 9 o'clock already. But I don't want to give you the short end of this because this is fascinating. But there's a concept that we are very, very foreign to, of having multiple wives. It's not something, again, back to what we said a moment ago about Western civilization and society and the way God intended for it to be. It's a whole other talk. But there is, at least I'm amusing a couple of you. Very good. Okay, good. There is a concept of having multiple wives. It is not allowed or suggested nowadays by any means. I don't want anyone to take my words out of context. But one of the hardest feelings is to have your rival have time with your spouse instead of you. It's a bad feeling, especially the way we understand it, and the same was back then. So Sarah, Rashi says, wanted to inflict herself, wanted her maidservant to live with Avraham and have a child, and because she would endure and suffer that pain, God would bless her with her own child. That's how Rashi explains it. And Rav Pincus says that is the simple interpretation of that verse, 100%. But he said there's possibly another way to understand what Sarah meant by Ulai ibane mimena. Maybe you can build our house through her. Listen to this. This is bomb. He says, he wants to suggest, for Pincus, that Sarah indeed intended that Hagar would have children, and those children would be considered hers, Sarah's children. Is that a foreign concept? Not really. We see this later by Bilhah and Zilpah, the maidservants of Rachel and Leah. After all, how many matriarchs do we have? Put up your fingers, everyone. 4. Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. I don't see 6. I don't see Bilhah and Zilpah also. Pincus asks 1 second. Each of them had children that were part of the 12 tribes. Bilhah had 2 sons, and Zilpah had 2 sons. How is it that they were considered as Jacob's sons equal to the sons of Leah and Rachel, that they were part of the 12 tribes? You want to know why? The answer is that anything that a slave acquires truly belongs to his or her master. So the children of the maidservants really belong to Rachel and Leah. So the 2 children that Bilhah had were really Rachel's children. And the 2 children that Zilpah had were really whose? Leah's children. 100%. So Sarah had the similar intention. She tells Avraham, come, let's build our house through Hagar. Her child that she will physically give birth to will be my child. So if so, Pincus asks, if that was her intention, well, why didn't things go as planned? Pincus says, Hagar didn't want this to happen. Hagar put her foot down and said, no. Look at your verse. Look at your screen. Chapter 16, verse 4. Vayavol Hagar vatahar. And Avraham comes to Hagar and she conceives. Vaterek hiharata. And then Hagar sees that she became pregnant. Vatikal givirta beneha. And her mistress, Sarah, became unimportant in her eyes. Basically, the Pasuk is telling us that Hagar disconnected from the ownership of Sarah. As Rashi explains, she disrespected her. She said, this woman's been married to this man for decades and decades and couldn't get pregnant. First time I'm with him, I get pregnant. She's not holy. She's not righteous. She's a nobody. God answered me. And she disconnected from her, disrespected her, and didn't want to subdue herself to Sarah. Hagar's behavior was very different than that of Bilhah and Zilpah's. Bilhah and Zilpah are only mentioned by name in our Torah. They're never mentioned to say anything. Not one time in our entire Torah does it say that they said something. But were they mute? No! They knew their place. They knew that they were maidservants. They knew that their children were their master's children. And because Pincus says they subdued themselves to their master, they knew their place, they never crossed over their boundaries. They merited each to give birth to 2 children, which were part of the 12 tribes. Forevermore would be mentioned and known. Because they knew their place. In contrast, Hagar didn't know her place. Now fine, in her merit, she was a princess, daughter of Paro. Maybe she wasn't used to this type of life. But that was her place. Her father decided to give her away as a slave, as a maidservant to Avram and Sarah. That was her destiny. She didn't accept it. She didn't respect Sarah. And once she left, she felt that, once she became pregnant, she felt that she was more worthy than her own mistress. She said, I got pregnant. She didn't. Then Sarah also felt hurt. She started working her hard. What did she do, Hagar? She ran away. She fled. Who comes to her? An angel of God. An angel of God comes to her and says, don't worry. Go back. You will have a son. You will name him Ishmael. But go back. That's your place. Meaning, it was obvious to everyone that she was doing the wrong thing. It was even obvious to the angel that she is carrying now a child that's not hers. It was Sarah's child. And she was just trying to break off and disassociate from her. That's why this child became a wild man full of trouble. One last question answer, and this is amazing. When Hagar got pregnant, she did so as a slave of Sarah. Once she was already pregnant, she disrespected her and she was trying to break off of her ownership, and she rebelled against her. So who did the child belong to? Hear the question? If during conception the baby belonged to Sarah, but then before the baby was born, Hagar tried to rebel and break off, and then she would want to keep the baby for herself. So who's that baby belong to? Explains Rabbi Pincus, it doesn't matter. You know why? Because that first baby, that first fetus, was a miscarriage. Hagar lost her first pregnancy. As Rashi tells us, chapter 16, verse 5, you can go and look at it, that Sarah gave Ain Hara, evil eye on Hagar, and caused her to miscarry. The power of the evil eye. She gave her an evil eye as a miscarry. What? Why would Sarah do that? What a horrible thing. Did she do that out of jealousy? We're talking our matriarch, our first. Explains Rabbi Pincus. Of course she wasn't jealous. Of course she didn't intend to do an evil thing. She intended through her evil eye to cause a miscarriage to Hagar, but you know why? Because that fetus was going to be a confused mixture. Who am I? Do I belong to Sarah or do I belong to Hagar? Chas v'shalom, God forbid, that child would have been multiples worse than Ishmael. After she came back, after the miscarriage and after that revelation from the angel of God that she's going to have a son, Ishmael, she got pregnant again with Abraham, and that was Ishmael. And Ishmael totally belonged to Hagar, because at that point Hagar already disconnected from Sarah. She already took off the yoke of ownership that Sarah had over her. And that child was only Hagar's. So the intention Sarah had was that this child should be mine, even though she gives birth to it, just like Zilpah and Bilhah. Hagar didn't want that to happen. We see from here, says Rabbi Pincus, a very important lesson, that someone who tries to take or get something by force will end up losing everything, and often more than they can even afford. If a person knows and respects the place that they are in, their destiny in life, just as Bilhah and Zilpah did, they will be rewarded greatly. Hagar didn't know this. Bilhah and Zilpah did. Who do we want to be like? We have to acknowledge the God-given talents and virtues that we each have, and our shortcomings as well, and where we're born, and who we're born to, and the type of life and profession that we've led ourselves or God let us down, let us through, however you want to put it. Whichever way, accept it with faith. Accept it, that trusting that God knows what's best for you. And don't try to force or push or get or take something that's not yours. Because when that happens, you end up losing, just like Hagar did. And when you don't, you end up gaining more than you could ever imagine in your wildest dreams, like Bilha and Zilpa. To summarize Rav Pincus' two lessons, the first lesson is committing yourself to God is by separating from the world around you. No shock treatment, you'll never find God that right, truthful way. And the second is don't go and try to take something or claim something that's not yours, because it only causes a loss, and the opposite will have a great reward.